West Ham have had a £25 million bid rejected for Nice centre-back Jean-Clair Todibo. Meanwhile, they're debating still about whether to make a third bid for Wolves captain Max Kilman. Now, there are some suspicions, understandably, that this bid is to speed Wolves up a little bit, to give them a bit of a warning shot that if we were to come and make that third bid for Max Kilman, you better accept it because there are alternatives. Look, Wolves, look over here. Todibo's over here. We're bidding for him. We're interested in this player. We prefer Kilman. We're going to come back for a third bid. But if you reject it, we're off ski. And I understand the reservations. Old West Ham would definitely have done that. However, I'm inclined to believe the bid. Now, both can be true. Of course, the bid could be legit, but it was just so low, we knew it would get rejected, and it's still a warning shot to Wolves. Consider it preparation for the third bid. But the reason I'm inclined to believe it is because of the original source of this story. And the original source is L'Equipe Sport over on the French side of things. They were the ones that reported it first and foremost, and then it got verified by those on the West Ham side of things, starting with their mesh of Sky Sports. I said, actually, that story from L'Equipe is true. It's checked out. West Ham did bid and did have a bid rejected by Nice for Todibo. If we wanted to just leak a story out there as a bit of a smokescreen, we could have done it through the West Ham side of things. And if that happened, then I would have joined the suspicion camp, which is, I've seen this before. This is like the Sullivan handbook. All we need now is an email to Nice threatening them to sell us Todibo, or we're going to loan someone from West Brom. I defaulted to West Brom just like David Sullivan did. There you go. I'm inclined to believe it, and I hope it's true. But the reason I hope it's true isn't necessarily the player himself. Truth be told, never really seen him play. I've heard of him. He's had a big reputation from such a young age. In fact, I was surprised to realise he's only 24. I thought he'd be a bit older. It feels like he's been around for quite some time. And I discovered he went on loan to Schalke. I do not remember that whatsoever. I feel like I watched German football. Don't remember him playing for Schalke. Went and had a look, played 10 games. 2 were in the cup as well. So there's no surprise that I don't recall him playing for Schalke. So it's not because of the player himself that I want him. It's more because of the dynamic of Tim Steidten and Julen Lopetegui. Now, just work with me here. It's a bit of a stretch, and I hope I get it across correctly. But this is my honest thoughts. Coming into the transfer window, I had some concern regarding how this relationship was going to work. Tim Steidten and the new guy. We hadn't appointed Lopetegui at this point. David Moyes was still the manager. There was talks with Lopetegui. They were linked to a whole host of other managers as well. So I had concerns as to how it's going to work, because the January transfer window was a disaster as far as I'm concerned. Even if Calvin Phillips had worked out, it was still a disaster because 3 players left. 2 in particular were attacking players and being used by the manager, and we didn't bring anybody in to replace either of them. So it wasn't good enough. And I do think, and I blamed all 3, and I still do blame all 3 today, looking back. Sullivan, Steidten, Moyes, all 3 of them had their part to play. The Abraham Osman deal sums them up to some extent. But regardless, it's done now. I'm looking forward to the summer transfer window, and I genuinely am looking forward to the summer transfer window. I appreciate we're in it, but I'm looking forward to us getting up and running. I'm still calm. It's the 3rd of July. There's 2 months of the window. Yes, I want the players in before season starts. Ideally, they'd be in by now because of pre-season training. Ultimately, while pre-season training gets underway, half the squad, quite a bit of the squad is going to be missing. Alvarez, Paqueta, Soufal, Soucek, Bowen, Areola. 6 players of the first team aren't going to be there. Mikel Antonio has been representing Jamaica. 7 players are not. Half the squad aren't going to be there today in training. I'm calm. As long as we can get 1 or 2 signings done in the next 2-3 weeks, and big ones, important ones like this, I'll be alright. But I was worried about how it was going to work. Is Sullivan going to learn from the previous mistakes of just lack of clarity? I think Moyes felt he had power and Steidten felt he had power. And I think we've got a bit of evidence there from Tim Steidten speaking about how he might have liked more control. It wasn't really what he was used to. I think that was a bit of an indication. I blame Sullivan for it. It's David Sullivan's fault. It was a case of how can he learn, so when we replace David Moyes, the new guy comes along and he's aware he has to work under, as well as alongside, but under Tim Steidten. I've been waiting for clues, for evidence. The signing of Guilherme was quite important to that because it feels like a Steidten one. Steidten was over in Brazil and getting the deal done. It feels like it's a Steidten pick. Good so far. And then these bids come in for Max Kilman. Now I think this is healthy. I think it's healthy allowing your head coach to have some leeway and some say in the transfer window. It doesn't mean he picks the players. It doesn't mean he gets to sit there and say, I want him, and that's that. We don't want that. But to be able to work with Tim Steidten and say, look, I'd really like this guy, I'd really like this guy, I'd really like this position, don't know who, but I'd like this position, I'd like that position. What can we come up with? I want to see them working together. I think the head coach has to have some input, but I think the director, I know he's technical director, I just keep calling him director of football, work with me. I think the head coach should have an input, but I think director of football should have the final say. That's what I imagine to be the dream scenario for a working relationship there. That Lopetegui can recommend players, can request certain profiles of players, maybe doesn't know who. That's okay. I would argue that's not his job. His job is to get the best out of the players he's got at West Ham, make us win games on Saturday and playing some decent football along the way. Get the players from the academy involved. He has enough to do without having to go scout players. That is Tim Steiden's job. That's his job. So ideally, Lopetegui said, I'd like this player and that player, these positions, and Steidten says, yeah, okay, I'll go try and make those players happen, and I'll go find players for those positions that you want fulfilled. So if Lopetegui does want Kilman, I believe that. I believe that Kilman is Lopetegui's number one choice. And we have bid for Max Kilman. They've been rejected. And the bids have been too low. Again, people argue with me about this when I say that I called the 25 million bid for Kilman insulted. And a few people say, well, how much do you think he's worth? It's not about what I think he's worth. It's what Wolves think he's worth. If you were selling something at home for 45 grand... and somebody bid 25 grand, I would consider that insulting to you. It doesn't matter what it is, it's just what they want. So we've gone in with quite low offers. I think the offers have been fair in terms of what Kilman is worth to us. I think 30 million is a fair fee for Max Kilman. But Wolves want 45. The reality is it's this sell-on clause. Maidenhead get 15 to 20%. It's not really been clarified as to what that figure exactly is. It's a lot of money. If we get him for 30 million, they've got to give up to 6 million to Maidenhead. That's huge for Maidenhead, but it's a chunk for Wolves. Suddenly they've only got 24 million for their captain. It's quite low. So I can understand why they're holding out for it. And if that clause wasn't there, I think this transaction would be a lot easier. But what pleased me, again, remove your personal opinion on Kilman. I think he's a good Premier League centre-back. I don't think he's the best. I don't think he's the worst. I think he's good. 6, 7 out of 10 signing Max Kilman would be. He's right. James Ward-Prowse of centre-backs. You know what you're going to get. He's never going to be the best player in the team, but I don't know. I don't think he'll be the worst player either. He's good. He's an average Premier League centre-back. Again, it's not an insult. People take it as it's not an insult. There's 60 centre-backs in the league and you're 35th, 25th, 35th best centre-back in that bracket. That's good. Anyway, I think the £30 million bid for Kilman's fair. But Steiden's basically said to Lopetegui, I'm going to go try and get your man. We're going to make bids and we're going to try and get him for you. I like it. That is good news. This is good. It's promising. But we've seen this from Steidten with Calvin Phillips. You know, Moyes really wanted him. They went and got him. Now let's flip it. Can we flip it? Because I think this is where we had an issue. When Steidten perhaps wanted players at West Ham and there was maybe a bit of reluctance from David Moyes that he didn't want it. It all depends on what you believe. But I think it's fair to say the relationship was somewhat not perfect. And like I said, I don't blame Moyes. I blame David Sullivan. He's an old school manager. Bringing in someone like Tim Steidten, it was always going to be a bit of a clash, a disagreement of how to go about things. But I've been sort of looking a little bit of it's more Lopetegui getting on board with Tim Steidten rather than the other way around. And I appreciate he's had previous roles where perhaps he's worked under somebody like Tim Steidten at Real Madrid, for example. But he wasn't there very long. It's hard to sort of base him off that. I don't know how they do player recruitment at Porto. I don't know how they do player recruitment at Sevilla. They didn't do any player recruitment. Well, they did. They spent money, just not what he thought he was promised. But I've been waiting. Then when this bid for Todibo came around, and there's been reports, and one of the reports stated that we've made the bid for Todibo, and this bit was key for me. Lopetegui had signed off on it because of the asking price for Max Kilman, and I thought that was significant, because if this is a Tim Steidten identification, that he's thought Todibo's the one we should go get as an alternative to Kilman, and Lopetegui's given it the green light, he's given it a thumbs up, I think this is very, very encouraging. This, to me, is evidence of a really good working relationship between those two already. And we've got the other layer of evidence, which came on Monday, the press conference, with them both sat there. And Lopetegui got a question put to him about the transfer window, about who we're going to sign. And I thought he handled it perfectly. He immediately said that's a question for Tim. But he gave his answer, which is, I'm happy with the players. We're always looking to improve. But you want to speak to Tim, and he turned around and said, do you want to add anything? So then Steidten answered the question, and I just thought there is what I feel is a really good relationship already. It's almost like Lopetegui is quite clear and understanding that essentially Steidten's the guy in charge of this transfer window, and he made it clear to the press in front of him that's the guy in charge of the transfer window. But the fact that we're still going for Kilman means that he's got a voice, he's been listened to, and they both spoke about how they're in constant communication, they're trying to bring in players, yada, yada, yada. But this bid, for me, just felt quite positive. I say significant, maybe not. Maybe it was signed Todibo, that would be significant. But it felt positive to me that the working relationship between those two is up and running. And I've seen, like I said, bits of evidence for hope. Nothing really to say that they're arguing or anything like that. I'm sure that'll get leaked if we end up going to the end of the transfer window and somebody at the club, not going to say who, but somebody at the club perhaps isn't happy with the business we've done. Maybe he's coming under pressure from the fan base for lack of signings. I'm pretty sure it'll get leaked that actually them two are squabbling like kids again. It's not my fault, it's those two. Who's in charge of them two? Anyway, I'm looking back again rather than forwards. So I know people will be listening to this thinking you're deluded, you're naive. Fine, it's my honest opinion. At the minute, I'm feeling alright. I'm still feeling calm about the transfer window. The fact that we are making these bids is promising. Last thing I'm going to add is Calafiori. Just a bit of an update. Bologna, chairman, president, whatever his position is, top dog at Bologna, has basically said they're going to sell Calafiori this summer, but they can't keep a hold of him. He's going somewhere. But interestingly, while he was strongly linked to Juventus, he's the president guy, main guy, chief, Bologna chief, said he ain't going to Juventus. He will probably go overseas. Now that's just thrown a little bit of a curveball. If our interest in Calafiori is genuine, I wouldn't be surprised to see us make our move. He's still being priced at around 40, 50 million, which feels a little bit excessive. Because I think we're going to sign one significant centre-back this window. Everything's based on rumours. You get some evidence, i.e. what literally came out of Steidten or Lopetegui's mouth, and that's what a lot of this video is based on, evidence from those two. But some of it is rumours. We all base an opinion based off rumours, based on what you believe. So my opinion about Todibo's bid is just that. It's just an opinion. It doesn't mean it's happened. I just believe it's happened. Some people yesterday still don't believe that Kudus had a minimum fee release clause active this summer. They don't believe Pattenberg, ex-West Ham employee Sean Whetstone and Fabrizio Romano. That's their choice. For me, I think that's as strong as you're going to get in terms of who to believe for West Ham news. But it's all about opinions. I think we'll make one big signing for centre-back this summer, and we might get a second one in, but I think it depends on the sale of Neil Gerd, ideally, or possibly Kurt Zouma. I just can't see a scenario where we have Mavropanos, Zouma, a Gerd, new expensive centre-back and cheaper centre-back that we signed this summer. I just can't see us having 5 senior centre-backs. We don't need 5 senior centre-backs. So I think the reports that we're going to be getting in 2 centre-backs, in an ideal world, I think they're true, but I think it definitely hinges on selling Nate Gerd. And if we do that, then I think we'll see a second centre-back arrive. I don't think they'll both be as pricey as Kilman and Todibo and Calafiori. I think you might get one of them plus one other. Ideal for me would be Jacob Greaves plus one of the big ticket ones, if you like. Ipswich are making a move for Jacob Greaves at the minute, so if we do have genuine interest in him, our hand might be forced. Now, I'm quite calm now, but like I said, if this was the 3rd of August and we've done no business, I wouldn't be calm. But also, if players like Jacob Greaves start joining other clubs, that's when I'll start to get a little bit, you know, hope he wasn't on the shortlist because, well, he's no longer on the shortlist. I hope we haven't missed out on him. So there you go. There you have it. I am feeling in a good mood at the minute. The bid for Todibo, I like it. Not because of Todibo, but because maybe Steidten and Lopetegui, maybe they're getting on. Hopefully, fingers crossed, because if they are, the transfer window will be a hell of a lot easier, and I believe they are. So I'm chilled. Anyway, I'm going to shut up and disappear. If you've enjoyed this rambling on, please do drop a like on the video by clicking thumbs up, helps out the channel. Also subscribe if you're new to Hammers Chat. I'll catch up with you tomorrow.